The air in Chicago was sharp this morning, that dry October cold that scrapes the lungs and smells like iron. From my table, I watched the morning traffic clog Michigan Avenue, a river of frustrated metal, but inside, il vento. There was only order, my order. The restaurant was my fortress, my legal face, the place where I had traded the shadows of Little Italy for the bright, cold light of corporate legitimacy. The scent of espresso and baking bread covered the lingering smell of bleach from the morning scrub down. This was my legitimate stronghold, my legitimate stronghold. At 36 years old, I was deep in the pivot, pulling my organization out of the muck and into the clean air of logistics and real estate. The old ways were dying, and I refused to die with them. This morning was about the final piece, the South Side Container Pier. That pier was my baptism, the asset that would wash everything clean. Across the expanse of polished mahogany, Arthur Bell from the investment fund was outlining the finer points of debt financing. He was a man made of spreadsheets and soft, uncalloused hands. He believed he was negotiating with Gabriel Marchetti, the sharp-witted chief executive officer who had appeared from nowhere. He was, mostly, but the other Gabriel, the one who had built an empire from the pavement up after dropping out of law school, was listening too. To my left, Elena Russo, my chief operating officer, sat with impossible stillness. Her dark hair was pulled back so tightly it looked severe, but Elena was the sharpest mind I had ever known. She was the architect of this entire legal transition, the one who translated my will into contracts and holding companies. She saw the world in numbers, and her loyalty was absolute. Near the heavy glass entrance, Luca Greco stood, pretending to inspect the reservations list. Luca was my head of security, my shadow, the last remaining link to the life I was trying to leave behind. He had known me since I was a kid stealing apples, and he was the one who taught me that control, not violence, was true power, though he was equally good at both. The federal agencies were always watching, applying pressure, waiting for a slip. This deal had to be perfect. Arthur Bell said something about a 30-day escrow. That was when the world stopped. The heavy glass door, designed to open with a silent, hydraulic sigh, flew open and slammed against the interior brass stop. The impact echoed like a gunshot in the quiet, carpeted room. A blast of frigid street air cut through the warm restaurant. Arthur Bell's voice died in his throat. Every head in the dining room turned. He was small, a little boy, maybe 7 years old. He stood shaking in the threshold, a ghost in a worn-out jacket. His face was pale under a layer of city grime, streaked with tears that had frozen and thawed on his cheeks. He was breathing in great, ragged sobs, his chest hitching. He clutched the straps of a faded blue backpack so tightly his knuckles were white, holding it against his small body like a piece of armor. His eyes, I will never forget his eyes. They were wide with a terror so pure it vibrated, scanning the room full of strangers, looking for what? A threat, a savior. They locked onto me. Perhaps it was because I was at the head table. Perhaps it was just chance. He took one stumbling step forward, then another, his voice a raw whisper that cut through the silence. They're hurting my mom. My focus snapped. The spreadsheets, the container pier, the millions of dollars on the table, they dissolved. I held up one hand, palm flat, toward Arthur Bell. He stopped, his mouth half open. I looked at Luca, and he was not looking at the boy. He was already moving, his hand inside his jacket, his body angling toward the door as he scanned the street. He was checking for a tail, a shooter, an ambush. This was the safe protocol. We were exposed. I have rules. They are the only things that separate me from the men I despise. They are the rules I carved into my own skin after watching my mother suffer. Rule 1, you do not harm women. Rule 2, you do not, under any circumstance, harm children. Elena was already on her feet. She moved with a liquid grace, scooping a glass of water from the service station as she passed. She knelt in front of the boy, blocking him from the view of the other diners. Her voice was low, stripped of its corporate chill. "It's okay," she said, holding out the water. "You're safe here. My name is Elena. What's yours?" The boy was shaking too hard to take the glass. "Noah," he choked out. The name was a bubble of air. I rose from the table, my napkin dropping to the floor. I walked around the polished wood and crouched, bringing myself down to his level. I put myself between him and the room. The bankers and their quiet judgment evaporated. I kept my hands open, visible. "I'm Gabriel," I said. My voice was quiet, the one I used when calming a spooked horse. "You did a very brave thing coming here. Noah, you're safe now. Tell me who is hurting your mom." He looked up at me, his small body vibrating. He was trying to read me. He was a kid from the street. He knew how to read predators. He had to decide if I was one. "Trent," he whispered, the name sticky with fear. He's her boyfriend. My mom, her name is Ava Collins. He's hitting her really bad at our apartment in Pilsen." He gasped for another breath. "She's a nurse. She works at night. She was sleeping." "Trent," I repeated. "Does this man have a last name? Noah?" "Riker," he said, the name finally coming out clear and sharp. "Trent Riker." I heard it, a small, sharp intake of air from behind me. I glanced over my shoulder. Luca. His face was carved from stone, but his eyes were alive, narrowed to slits. He gave me a single, slow nod, the confirmation I needed and the one I had dreaded. My blood ran cold. This was not a random act of domestic violence. Trent Riker, a known asset, a digital mule and a low-level enforcer. He was not just some abusive boyfriend. He was a piece of property belonging to Victor Cade. Victor Cade, the tech world phantom who ran Cadenex. Cade, the man who wanted the Southside container pier just as badly as I did, but not to wash money. He wanted it to control the gray market, to move his ghost containers and digital contraband. Cade, my direct rival, a man with no code, no honor. This was not a coincidence. This was a message. Cade was using this woman, this child, to pull my strings. My decision was instant. There was no calculation. There was no profit and loss. There was only the code. I stood up. Turning my back on the boy, I faced the men from the investment fund. Arthur Bell was checking his watch, his annoyance poorly veiled. "Gentlemen," I said. My voice was not loud, but it filled the room. It was the voice that had built this organization. "This meeting is over. We are done here." "Gabriel?" Arthur started, rising from his chair. "We have a schedule. The financing window. Elena will reschedule you," I said, cutting him off. I did not care about his window. I did not care about his money for Wera. I turned to Luca. "Get them out now." Luca moved, a polite but immovable wall of muscle, gesturing the bankers toward the door. I turned back to Noah. He was watching me, his eyes still flooded with terror, but now a small flicker of hope. I put my hand on his shoulder. This time, he did not flinch. "I'm going to help your mom, Noah," I said. "I'm going to stop him." I started walking toward the door, my hand guiding him. "But you have to show me the way." I was walking away from the deal that would have secured my entire future, the one that made me legitimate, the one that got the federal government off my back. Every step I took toward that door was a step back into the world I had fought so hard to escape. I did not hesitate. We were almost at the entrance when Noah suddenly stopped, fumbling with the zipper on his torn backpack. "Wait!" he cried, his voice breaking. He's doing it now. You have to see." He pulled out a cheap tablet. The screen was a spider web of cracked glass, but it was on. He tapped the dark screen, his small, dirty finger clumsy with panic. A video feed flickered to life. The angle was low, static. From the corner of a messy room, a baby monitor, I saw a woman, Ava. She was on the floor, trying to pull herself away. Her hair fanned out across a dirty rug. I saw a man's boot. I saw him drag her by the arm. I could hear her, a muffled scream, begging him to stop. "Please, Trent, no." A timestamp pulsed in the bottom corner of the screen. It was not a recording. It was live. My heart stopped, and the cold fury that I had spent years burying ignited. This was not just violence. This was a performance. Riker was streaming this. He was broadcasting his torture of this woman. It was a message intended for Victor Cade's network, a sick display of power, a threat, using this woman, this child, as a pawn in his game for the pier. I looked at Luca, who was watching the screen over my shoulder, his face a mask of controlled rage. He was already speaking quietly into the microphone on his cuff. I did not shout. I did not need to. My voice was flat, cold, and absolute. Black SUVs, I said, all of them. Now. The war for the South Side Pier had begun. It was not starting in a boardroom with contracts. It was starting in a 2-bedroom apartment in Pilsen with a terrified woman and a brave little boy. And I, Gabrielle Marchetti, was going to finish it. The engines of the 3 black SUVs were already running when I exited Il Vento. Luca held the rear door of the lead vehicle open, and I guided Noah, small and trembling, into the back seat before sliding in beside him. The boy was vibrating like a tuning fork, his eyes fixed on the cracked tablet in his lap. He was still watching the live feed, a tiny witness to his mother's suffering. "Where to, Noah?" Luca asked from the passenger seat, his voice calm, but his eyes were hard as he watched the traffic. "Pilsen," Noah whispered. He gave the address, a street and a number that meant nothing to me, but Luca nodded, already relaying it to the other drivers. We pulled into traffic, a 3-car cortege, moving with a speed and aggression that made other cars part for us like water. I watched the boy. He was terrified, but he had not broken. He had run for blocks, found a place he thought was safe, and convinced a stranger, a man who looked like me, to help. He had courage. I looked at his small, dirty hands, clutching that tablet, and I was not in a 5-figure suit in the back of an armored car. I was 9 years old. I was standing in the doorway of a kitchen in Little Italy. The linoleum was yellow and cracked, sticky under my bare feet. I smelled sour whiskey and the metallic tang of blood. My mother was on that floor, her lips split, and a man I did not know was standing over her, his breathing heavy. I was small. I was useless. I had frozen. Noah had not frozen. He had run. A cold, precise anger settled over me. It was not the hot rage of youth, the kind that makes you sloppy. It was the focused fury of a man who understands leverage. Victor Cade had just made the critical mistake of touching my past. He thought he was sending me a message about a container pier. He had no idea what he had actually done. He had reminded me why I build fortresses. "We are here, Gabriel," Luca said. The building was a 3-story brick walk-up, tired and worn. The street was quiet. Luca and his team were out of the vehicles before I was, moving with the silent efficiency of professionals. 2 men peeled off toward the back alley. Luca was at my shoulder. "Second floor," Noah said, pointing. "Apartment 2, Stay in the car. Noah, lock the doors. Do not open them for anyone but me or Luca," I commanded. The boy looked at me, his terror replaced by a desperate, pleading hope. "Please," he whispered, "hurry." I nodded. I did not need to be told. The front lock of the building was a joke. Luca bypassed it in a second. The hallway smelled of old food and dust. I took the stairs 2 at a time, Luca right behind me. Apartment 2, B. I could hear her, a muffled cry. I heard a man's voice, thick with rage. "You think you can hide things from me?" There was no time for finesse. I did not knock. I stepped back, planted my foot, and drove my heel directly into the wood next to the lock. The door jamb splintered. The door flew open, slamming against the inside wall. The scene was exactly what the tablet had shown. A small, cluttered living room. A man, Trent Riker, stood over her. He was big, muscular in a cheap way, his face flushed. Ava was on the floor, curled into a ball, trying to protect her head. Her arm was already a deep, ugly purple. Riker spun, his eyes wide with shock and sudden fear. He saw me, a man in a custom suit, filling the doorway. He saw Luca behind me, a shadow with the presence of a mountain. "Who the hell are you?" Riker snarled, trying to regain his footing. He moved to grab Ava again, perhaps to use her as a shield. He was too slow. I crossed the room in 3 strides. I did not hit him. I did not need to. I caught his wrist as he reached for her, clamped down, and used his own momentum to run him backward into the wall. His head hit the drywall with a hollow thud. He slumped, dazed. Luca was on him instantly, pulling Riker's arms behind his back, securing his wrists with a zip tie pulled from his jacket pocket. It was over in 5 seconds. "He's secure," Luca said, his voice bored. I turned my attention to the woman. I knelt beside her. "Ava," I said. She flinched, pulling away, her eyes squeezed shut. "Ava," I said again, my voice softer. "My name is Gabriel. Noah sent me. You are safe." Her eyes opened. They were hazel, clouded with pain and confusion. She saw Riker, subdued. She saw me. She was a nurse. Her gaze was assessing, even through the pain. She touched the side of her head, her fingers coming away bloody. "Noah," she whispered, her voice rough. "Where is my son?" "He's safe," I said. "He's downstairs in my car. He's okay." Relief washed over her face, so profound it left her weak. She tried to sit up, but a wave of dizziness hit her, and she grimaced. "I called it in," Luca said quietly from the doorway, his phone already back in his pocket. "Anonymous tip from a neighbor. Police will be here in 3 minutes." That was our window. I looked back at Ava. "We have to go, now. We cannot be here when they arrive." "Go," she asked, disoriented. "Go where I cannot just leave." "Yes, you can," I said. I stood and offered her my hand. She hesitated, looking at my suit, at the man I had with me. She was looking at the power I represented, and she was rightly afraid of it. "I will not leave you here. I will not leave Noah. I have a place. It's the safest place in the city. I am offering you protection. Please, we must go." She looked at Riker, then back at me. She made her choice. She took my hand. I pulled her to her feet, taking her weight as she stumbled. She was strong, but her body was failing her. I put her arm over my shoulder and half carried her out of the apartment, down the stairs. The cold air hit us as we exited the building. Noah was pressed against the glass of the sports utility vehicle. When he saw her, he burst out of the car. "Mom!" He ran to her, burying his face in her coat. She sank to her knees, ignoring her own injuries, wrapping her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. It was a reunion so raw, so private that I turned away, giving them the moment. "Get Riker," I said to Luca. "The police can have him. We are taking them." We were back in the vehicle, all 3 of us in the back this time, Ava clutching Noah as if he might dissolve. I gave the address to my penthouse, the one place in Chicago I knew was impenetrable. We arrived through the private garage. I took them up the express elevator. When the doors opened into my home, Ava's breath caught. The apartment was vast, sterile. A fortress of glass and steel overlooking the lake. It was cold, but it was safe. I had my personal physician meet us there, a quiet man who understood discretion and had long ago stopped asking questions. He examined Ava in the guest suite, a mild concussion. He said, "Severe bruising, nothing broken." He cleaned the cut on her head, gave her something for the pain, and left. Ava emerged from the room an hour later, showered, wearing clean clothes Elena had sent over. Noah was asleep on a sofa, covered by a cashmere blanket, the first peace he had known all day. Ava stood in the center of my living room, looking small against the 20-foot ceilings. She was wary, guarded. She was a nurse. I knew. But she had the sharp, analytical eyes of something else. "I was a paralegal," she said, answering my unasked question. She saw me watching her. "Before I had Noah, I quit school to raise him." That explained it. She was smart, and she was not intimidated. "I do not know who you are, Gabriel," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "but I know what you are. I grew up in this city. I recognize men like you. I am grateful you saved my son. I am grateful you saved me. But I will not trade one cage for another. I cannot be in your debt. I respected her for it. "This is not about debt," I said. "This is about a man named Victor Cade." She frowned, confused. "I do not know that name. This was about Trent. He was a—" "Trent Riker is a data asset for a corporation called Cadnex," I interrupted. "The chief executive officer is Victor Cade. He wants the South Side container pier. So do I. Riker was not just living with you. Your apartment overlooks the rail lines to that pier. He was using your home as a listening post. He was gathering data for Cade." Her face went pale as the pieces clicked into place. The strange equipment she thought was for his gaming. The hours he spent by the window. "The video," she whispered. "The baby monitor. He was broadcasting." I finished. "A message to Cade's people. A threat, using you." Before she could process this, my private line rang. It was Elena. "Turn on the news. Gabriel. Any channel." I hit the remote. The screen lit up. My face was on it. Security footage from Il Vento's lobby. It showed me, tall and dark, leading a small, terrified boy out of the restaurant. Then footage from a cell phone in Pilsen. It showed me half carrying Ava, dazed and injured, forcing her into a black vehicle. The chyron at the bottom of the screen was bright red. Chicago real estate mogul Gabriel Marchetti accused of kidnapping woman and child. A hashtag was trending, Marchetti Monster. "He flipped it," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Victor Cade is painting me as the villain. He's using the press as a weapon." Ava looked at the screen, horrified. He made you look like the kidnapper." "And that," I said, "is where the FBI comes in." My other line was ringing. I knew who it was. I picked it up. "Marchetti," I said. "This is Special Agent Mara Ellison," a woman's voice, like gravel, replied. "FBI, Criminal Enterprise Division, you just made my life very complicated. Gabriel. But you also might have given me an opening." I had been on Ellison's radar for years. She was smart, relentless, and hated me on principle. "I am listening, Agent," I said. "I know what you did this morning was not a kidnapping," she said. "I also know it was not legal. I do not care about Trent Riker, but I want Victor Cade. I have been trying to build a case on Cadnex for a year. He's clean. He uses deep fakes, bots, and digital cutouts. I cannot touch him." "What do you want?" I asked. "You have Riker's hardware. You have the mother. You have the tablet. You have the inside track. You give me Cade on a silver platter. Gabriel. Solid evidence that links him to the ghost containers and the gray market. You do that, and I will make your legal problems over this morning's extraction disappear. I will look the other way." It was a trap, a beautiful, perfect trap. Cade was attacking my reputation. Ellison was offering me a tightrope over a canyon. I hung up. I looked at Ava. She was the key. "Cade is trying to destroy me," I said. "The federal government is trying to use me, and you are caught in the middle. I am offering you a different option, an alliance." "An alliance," she repeated, wary. "I need to dismantle Cade. I need to do it with the law, and I need to do it my way. You need to be free. You need Noah to be safe. Riker's equipment, that tablet, it is filled with data. My team can crack it, but we do not know what we are looking for. You do. You lived with him. You are a paralegal. You can see what we cannot." I offered her the terms. "Give me 72 hours. Stay here under my protection. You and Noah will be safer here than anywhere on Earth. In exchange, you help me and my team analyze that data. You help me find the link I need to destroy Cade." She looked at Noah, sleeping soundly on my sofa, his face finally relaxed. She watched him for a long time. Then she looked at me. She was not looking at a Mafia Don. She was looking at the man who had brought her son back. 72 hours, she said, her voice no longer shaking. "I will help you find what you need, not for you, for my son, to make sure that man can never, ever touch us again." The stakes were set. My goal: destroy Cade, legitimize my empire, and hold the federal government at bay. Ava's goal: secure her freedom and protect her son. Agent Ellison's goal: get her evidence. The war had moved from the street to my living room. The penthouse, for all its sterile beauty, had become a war room. My living room, overlooking the dark expanse of Lake Michigan, was now cluttered with servers, monitors, and two of Elena's top tech analysts. They had salvaged Riker's laptop and the cracked tablet, meticulously extracting the hard drives. Ava was the center of it all. She had not slept. She sat at the long dining table, her hazel eyes red-rimmed but intensely focused, scrolling through lines of corrupted code and fragmented files. She was not a hacker, she was a paralegal, and she was hunting for something a tech analyst would miss: linguistic patterns, mistakes, the human element. "I found it," she said, her voice quiet. The analyst stopped typing. I walked over, standing behind her. On the screen was a shipping manifest. It looked legitimate, standard. "I have seen this before," she said, pointing to a specific line item. Trent used to mutter it in his sleep. "Ghost container." I thought it was from one of his video games. Elena moved to my side, her eyes narrowing. "Ghost container," Elena repeated, the implications dawning on her. "A virtual slot, a container that exists on the manifest but not on the ship. It is used to balance the weight and value of undeclared cargo. If Cade is moving illegal tech, or weapons, or anything heavy, he uses these to make the books match." Ava finished. She clicked, opening another fragmented file. It was a log, dates, times, container numbers, all corresponding to the ghost manifests. He was sloppy. He kept a private log of the real cargo here. He was hiding it from Cade. He was skimming. I said, "Riker was not just a mule, he was a thief. And he had just handed us Victor Cade's entire gray market operation." I looked at Elena. She knew what this meant. This was the silver bullet Agent Mara Ellison had asked for. "Gabriel," Elena said, pulling me aside into my study. She shut the glass door. Her expression was severe. "You cannot be serious about giving this to the FBI." "It is the only way," I said, moving to the window. "It is suicide," she hissed, her professional calm cracking. "Shaking hands with the federal government means exposing our belly. If you invite Mara Ellison in to look at Cade, she will not stop. She will tear this entire organization apart, the clean and the unclean, everything we have built." "She gets Cade," I said, turning to face her. "We get immunity. That is the deal." "There is no such thing as immunity. Gabriel only leverage, and we will be giving ours away." "Then we set the terms," I said. "Hard terms. She wants Cade. She gets him. But in return, I want a consent decree, one that immunizes Marchetti Logistics and all its parent companies from prosecution for any past activities, effective immediately. A clean break. It is the price of legitimacy, Elena, and I am willing to pay it." Before she could argue further, my secure phone buzzed. It was not Elena. It was Luca, I answered. "We have a problem," Luca said. His voice was flat, which meant the situation was critical. "Cade is not waiting. He just made his move, not against us, against the boy." My blood ran cold. "What?" "Someone just put a brick through the front window of Noah's elementary school. The message tied to it was simple: Marchetti's monster belongs in a cage." A low, animalistic growl started in my chest. Cade had crossed the line. He had broken the code. He had targeted a child. "Ava's information," I said, the pieces snapping together. "Cade's network is retaliating. They are doxing her." "They have her name, her old address, her nursing license," Luca confirmed. "It is all over the dark forums. The #Marchetti monster tag is now tied directly to her. This penthouse, this fortress of glass, was suddenly a cage. It was isolated. We were a target." "We are moving," I said, "all of us, now." "Where?" Elena asked, her strategic mind already calculating. "The safe houses are not equipped for this." "Not a safe house," I said. "We are hiding in plain sight. We are going to Il Vento. It is my territory. It is full of my staff, my security, my eyes. He is safer there than he is anywhere else in this city." The transition was chaos, but controlled. Luca's team secured the garage. We moved in the same 3-car formation. But this time, Ava was not a victim. She was a passenger, her face set, clutching the encrypted hard drive that held Cade's secrets. Noah, awakened from his sleep, was terrified by the sudden move, but Luca treated him with a strange, gruff kindness, handing him a secure 2-way radio and telling him his job was communications, making the boy feel like a soldier, not a package. We established a new war room in the private offices above Il Vento. The restaurant below was prepping for the lunch rush. The smells of garlic and simmering tomatoes, a bizarre contrast to the armed men in the hallway. I was helping one of the tech analysts move a server rack when my hand slipped. The edge of the metal casing was sharp. It sliced across my palm, deep. "Damn it," I muttered, shaking the blood from my hand. "Sit down," a voice commanded. I turned. Ava was standing in the doorway, a full medical kit in her hands. She must have requisitioned it from Luca's team. "It is nothing," I said, wrapping my hand in a napkin. "It is not nothing. It is a deep laceration, and you are bleeding on your own floor," she said, the nurse in her taking absolute control. She pointed to a chair in the kitchen prep area, which was empty. "Sit." I sat. She pulled up a stool, opened the kit, and began cleaning the wound with an antiseptic wipe. Her touch was professional, firm, but gentle. I watched her work. The overhead lights caught the exhaustion around her eyes, but her hands were perfectly steady. "You are not afraid of me," I said. It was not a question. She looked up for a second, her hazel eyes meeting mine. "I'm terrified. Gabriel," she said, her voice low, "of you, of what you are, of what this is." She returned her focus to my hand. "But right now, you are a man with a cut, and I am a nurse. This needs stitches." She prepped a sterile needle. I did not flinch as she began the work. The small, precise movements were hypnotic. "Taking care of things," she said, almost to herself. "It is its own kind of courage, I guess. It is the only kind I have ever really had." I watched the thread pull my skin back together. I thought of the empire I had built with force and fear. I thought of her, running into the street, saving her son with nothing but her wits. "It is the only kind that matters," I said. She finished, her work neat and strong. She bandaged my hand. Our eyes held for a moment, a silent, fragile understanding passing between us. The intimacy of the quiet kitchen, the scent of antiseptic, the simple act of care. It was more real than any negotiation I had ever had. The moment was broken by Elena, who appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Gabriel, we have a breach, a real one." I stood, the pain in my hand gone. "What?" "Our legitimate shipments, a container of medical supplies bound for Detroit. It was just flagged for an anonymous customs inspection. They knew the route, the manifest number, the exact time. Someone is leaking our movements." "Matteo," I said instantly, "our warehouse manager. He sets the schedules." "I thought so too," Elena said, shaking her head. "But I checked the logs. The leak pattern does not match the warehouse manifests. Matteo did not have this information. The leak only matches the financial manifests, the ones sent to the investment fund." My blood turned to ice. "Arthur Bell. He's the only one who sees both our logistics schedule and the investment timelines," Elena said, her voice tight with fury. "He's not just a banker. He has been playing both sides. He is Victor Cade's mole. The man from the breakfast meeting, the man with the soft hands. He was trying to buy the pier for me while selling my information to Cade." "Good," I said, a cold smile touching my lips. "Now we know who the traitor is. We can use him. Elena, you are going to leak Mr. Bell a new proposal, a dummy operation, a new pier location we are supposedly acquiring. Feed him the bait." I turned, picking up my secure phone. I dialed Mara Ellison's number. "Agent Ellison, I said when she answered. "I am delivering you the proof you need. Victor Cade is using ghost containers to move illicit goods. I need a digital warrant for Cadinex servers. Now." "I cannot get a warrant based on the word of a mobster. Marchetti." she snapped. You will not have to, I said. You will get one based on the sworn testimony of a victim, Ava Collins. She is a former paralegal. She is credible. And she saw the original manifests on Riker's machine before he was arrested. She is your probable cause. I was forcing Ava deeper into this, and I hated it. But it was the only move. Before Ellison could even respond, Luca appeared at my other side. Gabriel, we have a visitor. Front of the house. I do not have time. I said, You need to make time, Luca said. He's not a gunman. He's a lawyer, and he's serving papers. A new kind of dread settled on me. Cade was not just attacking with bricks and bots. He was attacking with the law. I met the man in the lobby of Il Vento. He was expensive, his suit worth more than my first car. He smiled, a shark smile. Mr. Marchetti, he said, ignoring me and handing the papers directly to Ava, who had followed me out. Miss Collins, you are served. Ava's hands trembled as she read the document. I saw the blood drain from her face. What is it? I demanded. It is an emergency petition, she whispered, her voice breaking, to remove Noah from my custody, filed on behalf of concerned citizens. On what grounds? I snarled. Ava looked at me, her eyes filled with a new, agonizing terror. Endangering the welfare of a minor, it cites the news reports, the Marchetti Monster hashtag, it cites his known association with you. This was Cade's master stroke. He was using my reputation to take her son. Ava backed away, shaking her head, the document fluttering in her hand. No, this is what you do. You pull everyone into your fire. I have to go. Gabriel, I have to take Noah. I will not let my son burn for you. She turned to run, to grab Noah. I caught her arm. If you run, he wins, I said, my voice low and urgent. He will use the law to hunt you down, and he will win. You want to protect your son. We fight him in the open. I will not win this in the shadows. I will win this in a courtroom, in front of everyone. He wants to use the law. I am the law he forgot about. How? She cried. How can you fight that? They are twisting everything. We need more, I said, turning back toward the war room. We need something undeniable. Ava followed me, her fear replaced by a desperate, cold anger. She sat at the terminal. The baby monitor, she said. The video. There has to be something else on it. The tech analyst pulled up the original, unedited file. The one Riker had tried to delete. The file was longer than the stream we had seen. We watched it again. The grainy footage, the boot, the sound of her screaming. It was agonizing. But this time, we watched the edge of the frame. We saw the apartment door. Halfway through the assault, there was a knock, a loud, official knock. Riker stopped. He looked at the door. Ava was whimpering on the floor. A voice called through the wood. Everything okay in there, Riker? I looked at Luca. He recognized the voice. It was a local beat cop. We heard Ava's scream, muffled but clear. The officer outside the door must have heard it. He did nothing. Riker called out, his voice casual. Just a disagreement. Officer, we are fine. The cop waited a beat. Keep it down. We heard his footsteps walking away. He did not intervene. He did not even open the door. He listened to a woman being attacked, and he walked away. Oh, he's not just on Cade's payroll, I said, the implication slamming into me. He was complicit. He was standing guard. Ava looked at me. The final piece clicking into place. This was not just a corporation. It was a conspiracy. And we had the proof. The fog rolled off Lake Michigan, a cold, wet shroud that swallowed the South Side container pier. It was 3 a.m. The air was thick with the smell of diesel and rust. This was my world, the one I was trying to change, but it was also the one I knew how to command. My operation was in motion, a 3-pronged attack built on Cade's own arrogance. Prong 1. Luca. He was a ghost in the fog, moving along the perimeter fence, tracking the ghost container that Ava's data had identified. It was a decoy, a trap loaded with Cade's illicit tech, and Luca was letting it run, tracking it to its final destination. Prong 2, Elena. She was miles away, in the heart of the beast, using the high-level access codes we had pulled from Arthur Bell's encrypted files. She had bypassed the lobby security of the Cadenex building. She was in a service shaft, moving toward the server room. Her target was the digital gold, the crypto ledgers, the cold wallet that held the payment records for every dirty cop and port official on Cade's payroll. Prong 3. I was not in the shadows. I was in an unmarked federal vehicle, sitting next to Special Agent Mara Ellison. My presence was her unofficial cover. We were parked in an overflow lot, watching the entrance to the pier. She had her warrant, granted on Ava's sworn testimony, but she was hesitant. She was a woman who trusted no one, least of all me. "Your information better be solid, Marchetti," she said, her voice a low growl. "If this is a setup, I will burn your entire legitimate world to the ground before breakfast." "You want Cade, Agent," I said, looking through the fogged-up windshield. "He is in there. This is your one shot to take him legally." "And you," she countered, her eyes hard on my profile. "What do you get besides the pier, of course?" "I get to stop him," I said. "He broke the rules. He involved a child." She scoffed, a short, sharp sound of disbelief. "Do not sell me your code of honor. Gabriel, I have read your file. You are a shark who just found a bigger shark." Before I could answer, her secure phone buzzed. She put it on speaker. "Ellison," she barked. A voice came through, panicked. "Agent, thank God, this is Chairman Davies, from the Port Authority. You have to call off your raid." "What are you talking about, Davies? I am just sitting on the warrant," she said, her eyes narrowing, flashing to me. I just got a call," he stammered, his voice high with fear. "It was Marchetti. It was him. He said if I cooperated with the federal government, he would put my family in the harbor. He said he knows where my daughter goes to school. He is threatening to kill my family." My blood ran colder than the lake. I did not move. I did not speak. Ellison's hand moved slowly toward the weapon on her hip. She was looking at me, her face a mask of pure, cold fury. "Is that right, Mr. Davies?" she said, her voice silky. "Marchetti is threatening you right now." "Yes, it was his voice. I know his voice. He is an animal." Ellison muted the call. She looked at me. "You want to explain that, Gabriel, or should I just put a bullet in your knee right now?" "It is a deep fake," I said, my voice level, though my heart was hammering. "It is Victor Cade. He's burning me. He's trying to invalidate your warrant." "That sounded exactly like you," she hissed. My own phone buzzed. It was not a call. It was a secure message from the war room at Il Vento, from Ava. I held up the phone. On the screen was a simple message. "Audio artifact, empty room reflection. It is a fake, tracing router. Stand by." I showed the screen to Ellison. "My team is on it. She is on it. That was not a phone call. It was a digital broadcast. Give her 1 minute." Ellison was torn. Her gut told her I was a killer. Her eyes were watching a message from a woman she knew was a victim. A new message from Ava appeared. "Got it. Source is a VoIP router broadcasting from IP address 12.99.1.4. It is a dedicated server, registered to Cadenex. Pinging server room. Elena is on it." At that exact second, in the Cadenex building, Elena slipped a drive into the main server rack. As Ava's trace hit the server, it created the digital handshake Elena needed. A new file tree opened. She saw it. Cade_payables_cold_ledger. She began the download. Ellison read the message. Her face was grim. She unmuted her phone. "Mr. Davies, you are the victim of a technological attack. That was not Mr. Marchetti. We have proof. Stay inside. Lock your doors. We are executing the warrant." She hung up and keyed her radio. "All teams, go, go, go." The port exploded in light. Federal vehicles swarmed the gate, but Cade was ready. This was not a simple logistics hub. It was a fortress. private security, men I recognized as Cades, opened fire, not with handguns, but with automatic weapons. "Stay in the car!" Ellison yelled at me. I laughed. I was already out, moving along the side of the vehicle as bullets pinged off the armored chassis. I pulled my own weapon from the small of my back. I did not fire at the men. I fired at the light, one by one. The high-powered security cameras mounted on the cranes sparked and died. I shot the weapon out of one man's hand. I was not a killer. Not tonight. I was a surgeon. Cade was using this chaos, streaming it, no doubt, to paint me as the aggressor. I was cutting his eyes. Gabriel Luca's voice roared in my earpiece. It was raw, panicked. "They hit Il Vento, a secondary team. Riker, he has Noah. He has the boy. He is heading your way. He is using the container truck to get him out." The world stopped. The gunfire, the federal agents, Ellison, it all faded. Riker. Cade had sent Riker, the one man Noah was most terrified of, to breach the fortress and steal the boy. He was using my attack as cover. A container truck, the ghost vehicle, was rumbling toward a side gate. Luca was on foot, running, but he was too far. "Ava is with me," Luca yelled. "She insisted." I sprinted, cutting across the yard, vaulting over a stack of pallets. I saw the truck. The cab door was open. Riker was there, a shadow against the dim light, dragging a small, struggling shape. He was trying to haul Noah into the cab. "Noah!" Ava screamed. She came out of the fog, running, her face a mask of primal terror. She had a gun in her hand, one Luca must have given her. She raised it, her hands shaking. Riker saw her. He dropped Noah and pulled his own weapon, using the boy's small body as a shield. He pressed the barrel to Noah's head. "Shoot me, Ava," he spat. "Go on, take the shot." Ava froze. She was sobbing, her arm trembling, the gun useless. She could not take the shot. Noah was crying, "Mommy, Mommy." I was 50 yards away, too far. Luca was 20. Riker was going to kill him. Then Ava stopped shaking. She lowered the gun. Her face changed. The terror was replaced by a cold, absolute focus. The nurse. She dropped the gun entirely, her hand darting into the pocket of the medical jacket she was still wearing. "You like it loud, Trent," she whispered. She pulled out a small, silver object, a personal medical alarm, the kind nurses carry. She yanked the pin. The sound that erupted was not human. It was a piercing, technological shriek, 140 decibels of concentrated pain, designed to shatter eardrums. It cut through the fog, louder than the gunfire. Riker screamed. He dropped his weapon, his hands flying to his ears, his body convulsing as the frequency assaulted his brain. He stumbled back, disoriented, blind with pain, releasing Noah. The boy ran. He ran straight to Ava, who scooped him up, shielding him. Luca was on Riker in a single bound, driving him to the asphalt, his knee on Riker's neck. He had the zip tie on his wrists before Riker's ears had even stopped ringing. I walked up, my own weapon leveled. Riker was on the ground, spitting, glaring at me with pure hatred. This was the man who had beaten Ava, the man who had terrorized her son, the man who had stood in that apartment, complicit. My 9-year-old self was screaming in my head, "Finish it, end him. Be the man he thinks you are." My finger tightened on the trigger. I saw the fear in Riker's eyes. He knew I would. Then I heard a small whisper, "Dad." I froze. I looked over. Noah was watching me, his face buried in his mother's shoulder, but his eyes were on me. He had not called me Dad. He had asked a question. He was asking me who I was. I took a deep breath. I let it out. I saw the 9-year-old in the kitchen doorway, and I made a different choice. I uncocked the weapon and holstered it. Agent Ellison ran up, her own gun trained on the scene, her face flushed from the firefight. She looked at Riker, then at me. "He's all yours, Agent," I said, my voice calm. Elena's voice came through my earpiece, crisp and clean. "Gabriel, I have the ledger, download complete. I am out." Ellison's radio crackled to life. "We have the servers. We have Cade's men. We have the ghost container." Ellison looked at me. She had the cold wallet, She had the server logs. Thanks to Ava, she had the original baby monitor video showing the complicit cop. And now she had Trent Riker, alive. She had the entire conspiracy. I looked at Ava, who was holding her son, her body shaking in the aftermath. I had a choice: kill Riker or let the law do its work. In front of Noah, I had chosen the law, and in doing so, I had sealed Victor Cade's fate. The chaos on the pier was immediate. Federal agents swarmed the ghost container, their shouts cutting through the damp air as they pulled out racks of illicit hardware. Agent Mara Ellison was a whirlwind, directing the arrests, securing the scene, her face grim in the flashing blue and red lights. Luca hauled the zip-tied Trent Riker to his feet and shoved him toward a federal agent. I need Cade," Ellison barked into her radio, scanning the yard. "Where is Cade?" My earpiece crackled. It was Elena. Her voice was ice. "He is not at the pier. Gabriel, he is at Cadenex headquarters, 48th floor, and he is live." I turned to Ellison. "He is spinning this. Agent, right now. He's painting this as a corporate raid, an attack by me." "I have my evidence," she snapped. "You have hardware," I countered. "He has the media. He's building a narrative that your warrant was falsified, that I tricked you. If you do not shut him down publicly, his lawyers will tie this up in court for a decade." Her eyes narrowed. She knew I was right. "He's on the 48th floor," I said. "He's broadcasting. I am going up. You can come as my federal escort, or you can wait for his lawyers to serve you." She made her choice. My car. The sun was a pale, sickly orange smear over the lake as we pulled up to the glass and steel monolith of the Cadenex building. The lobby was chaos. Mara badged her way through, her team and I in her wake. We took the express elevator. The doors opened onto the 48th floor. It was not an office, it was a broadcast studio. Victor Cade stood in a pool of bright white light, a camera broadcasting his image to the world. He was immaculate, wearing a fresh suit, his face a mask of calm, righteous anger. "This is the reality of modern commerce," he was saying, his voice smooth and reassuring. "When a dinosaur, a relic of the criminal past like Gabriel Marchetti, cannot compete, he resorts to violence. He has used falsified documents to convince the FBI to attack my company." "Mr. Cade," Mara Ellison said, stepping into the light, her voice booming in the quiet room. "This is not a corporate attack. This is a federal warrant." Cade turned. He saw her. Then he saw me, stepping out of the shadows behind her. He smiled. He had wanted this. "Agent Ellison," he said, still broadcasting, "you have been duped by him, by this thug. Where are your victims? Where is the proof?" "They are right here," I said. The elevator doors opened again. Luca stepped out, followed by 3 men. They were not my men. They were in their late 50s, their faces lined with exhaustion. They wore the worn jackets of truck drivers. Cade's smile faltered. "You speak about victims." "Victor," I said, my voice quiet, letting the broadcast microphones pick it up. "These men are the drivers whose routes you stole, whose pensions you absorbed and dissolved." One of the men stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Cade. "My name is Frank," he said, his voice rough. "I drove for 25 years. Cadenex bought our contract. He called us legacy costs. He bankrupted us, took our data, and left us with nothing. While we sat empty, he was shipping his ghost containers on our routes." The feed was live. Cade's face, for the first time, showed a flicker of panic. His narrative was crumbling. "This is absurd," Cade stammered. "A fabrication." He lunged for his desk, for his keyboard. "You think you have won. You have nothing. You have the words of old men." "We have the ledger, Victor," I said. "You have what?" He laughed, a high, thin sound. His hand moved to a biometric scanner on his desk. "You have nothing, this building, these servers. This is the evidence. And you, Marchetti, have just helped me destroy it. Dead man switch." He pressed his palm to the scanner. The lights in the entire building cut out, plunging us into the gray twilight of the sunrise. Alarms began to blare. "The servers are frying," Cade hissed in the dark, his voice triumphant. It is all gone, wiped, and the final access log, it will show your chief operating officer's digital signature, Gabriel. You just destroyed the federal government's case for them. It is all on you. In the war room above Il Vento, Ava watched the feed go to static. He's wiping it, one of my techs said, his face pale. It is all going. Ava was not watching the static. She was watching the code log, the one Elena had used to get in. No, she whispered, he is not. Look, that protocol, it is not just an erase command. It is a two-part validation. He did not just activate a kill switch. He activated a transfer switch. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. He's not deleting it. He's moving it to an off-site backup. The kill switch was a performance, but he needed the biometric key to authorize the transfer. He just unlocked his own vault. She hit a command line. Elena, she said into her microphone, her voice urgent. He unlocked the mirror, the off-site backup. Do you have it? In the Cadinex lobby, Elena sat with her laptop, bathed in the red glow of the emergency lights. A new file tree had just appeared on her screen. I have it, Ava, she whispered, her voice tight with triumph. I have the mirror. I have the crypto ledger. All of it. My earpiece clicked. Gabriel, Elena said. I have it. The emergency lights on the 48th floor flickered on. Victor Cade was standing by the window, smiling at me, a king surveying his victory. It is over, Gabriela, he said. Elena, I said into my microphone, put it on the feed. Put it all on the feed. Now. The broadcast cameras, running on backup power, were still live. Cade's feed, which had been static, suddenly came back. But it was split. On one side was Cade's smiling face. On the other was a spreadsheet. It was the crypto ledger. We watched, live, as the feed scrolled, names, dates, amounts. We saw the name of the beat cop who had stood outside Ava's door. We saw the names of 2 Port Authority officials. And we saw the largest transaction, funneled through 3 shell companies, terminating in a private account belonging to Arthur Bell. Cade's smile dissolved. His face went white. The feed split again, showing the faces of the Cadinex board of directors, patched in on an emergency virtual call. We heard a voice, hot and loud. I make a motion for the immediate removal of Victor Cade as chief executive officer. All in favor? Aye. It was unanimous. Cade stared at the screen, his empire dissolving in real time. He looked at me, his eyes hollow. He turned and ran, not for the elevator. He ran for the glass doors leading to the private helipad. Stop him, Mara Ellison yelled. Oh, yeah. I was already moving. I burst through the doors onto the roof. The wind was ferocious, whipping my coat. Cade was there, at the edge. 48 stories above the concrete, the sunrise was spectacular, a blaze of orange and fire over the city. He looked down, then looked at me as I approached. You did this, he whispered, his voice stolen by the wind. The rat, the truck drivers, you. He put one foot on the low barrier. I will not go to prison, Marchetti. He leaned forward. I lunged. I did not grab his arm. I grabbed the front of his $1,000 suit, a fistful of fabric, and hauled him backward. He crashed onto the helipad deck, a pathetic, sobbing heap. He looked up at me, his arrogance shattered, replaced by utter confusion. Why, he choked out. I looked down at the man who had tried to destroy me, who had terrorized a woman and her child. Because you do not get the easy way out, I said, my voice as cold as the morning air. You will live, and you will stand trial. Mara Ellison and her agents swarmed the roof, weapons drawn. She looked at Cade, then at me. She holstered her weapon. Victor Cade, she said, pulling him to his feet. You're under arrest. The fallout was immediate. With the ledger public, the entire network collapsed. Riker, back at the pier, confessed to everything, implicating Cade, the cop, and Arthur Bell, desperate for a deal. I watched from a distance as federal agents walked Arthur Bell, the man with the soft hands, out of his investment office in handcuffs. The complicit cop was suspended. his badge and gun taken. I returned to Il Vento. The sun was up. The restaurant, my fortress, was wounded. The front windows were shattered. Sometime during the night, the Hash Marchetti monster tag had incited a small mob. They had thrown bricks and spray painted the doors. Inside, 2 of my guards, the men who had been on duty when Riker took Noah, were getting stitches from my personal doctor. They had failed, but they had fought. They were bruised, cut, but alive. My victory had not been bloodless. Elena was already coordinating the cleanup. The insurance will cover the damage. Gabriel, but the reputation... Pay the staff, I said, looking at the broken glass. Full wages for everyone. Even though we are closed, we will rebuild. And this time, we will do it with a completely clean license. I left her to it. I went back to the pier. The federal agents were mostly gone. The sun was bright now, glinting off the water. I saw them, Ava and Noah. They were sitting on a stack of pallets, wrapped in silver emergency blankets. Noah was finally asleep, his head in her lap. Ava was just staring at the water, her face pale, exhausted, but breathing. She was free. She looked up as I approached. She did not smile. She just watched me. This was the image that would stay with me, the quiet resilience of the morning after the violence. The sun, bright and unforgiving, on the wreckage. I heard the shouting before I saw them. A horde of news reporters, held back by the last of Mara's agents, saw me. They broke through the line. Ah, Mr. Marchetti, did you orchestrate this? Are you cooperating with the federal government? Are you still in the Mafia? I stopped. I faced the cameras. My suit was torn. My hand was bandaged. I was exhausted, but I stood tall. My name is Gabriel Marchetti, I said, my voice carrying over the wind. Marchetti Logistics will be severing all ties to its dark money past. We are cooperating fully with the federal trace on Cadenex. We are rebuilding, and we are doing it in the light. The weeks that followed the confrontation at the Cadenex building were a war of a different kind. The battlefield was not a foggy pier. It was a series of sterile conference rooms, populated by lawyers in suits that cost more than my first car. My public statement had been a declaration of intent, and now I had to honor it. I sat across from a team from the Department of Justice. With Elena at my side, Agent Mara Ellison was present, not as an antagonist, but as a silent, watchful observer. Let us be clear, Mr. Marchetti, the lead prosecutor said, a man with a gray face and eyes that had seen everything. Your cooperation regarding Cadenex is noted. But your organization has a history, a long one. We are not simply wiping that slate clean. I am not asking you to, I said. My voice was calm, measured. I am offering a full surrender of the past. Marchetti Logistics is opening its books, all of them. Elena laid out the terms we had prepared, the consent decree. It was a masterpiece of legal strategy. We would voluntarily forfeit all assets and operations connected to legacy businesses, the ones whose statutes of limitations had conveniently expired. We were sacrificing the rotting limbs to save the body. We would accept a corporate suspended sentence, massive fines, and rigorous federal oversight for the next 5 years. The prosecutor stared at me. You are agreeing to be monitored. I am agreeing to be legitimate, I corrected him. You wanted to bring me down, sir. Instead, you are going to be my partner in bringing me up. My new logistics company will be so clean, so transparent. It will be the standard by which you judge everyone else. It was a gamble, an admission of past guilt to secure a future. Mara Ellison watched me, her expression unreadable. When the meeting concluded and the initial terms were agreed upon, she waited for me in the hallway. That was a hell of a play, Gabriel, she said, her arms crossed. It was the only play, Agent, I replied, adjusting my cuff. She held my gaze. I still do not like you, Marchetti. I do not trust men who operate in the gray. Neither do I said. That is why I am getting out of it. She nodded, a small, sharp acknowledgement. You did the right thing when it counted, at the pier, with the boy. She paused. Do not make me regret looking the other way. She was not my friend. She was not my enemy. She was the line. And for the first time in my life, I was comfortable standing on the right side of it. While the lawyers argued, Il Vento remained closed. The shattered glass was replaced, the graffiti scrubbed from the brick. But I did not reopen for business. Not at first. Instead, I had Elena contact the drivers, the men like Frank who had been ruined by Catanex. That next weekend, the kitchen fires at Il Vento were lit for the first time since the attack, but we were not serving high-paying customers. My head chef, a gruff man who had been with me for a decade, supervised the creation of hundreds of meals, pastas, hearty soups, fresh bread. We opened the doors as a community kitchen, exclusively for the drivers and their families who had been displaced by Cade's operation. I stood at the door myself, welcoming them. They were wary, suspicious. I was the other shark in the water, but they were hungry, and the food was hot. By the second weekend, the line stretched down the block. It was a start. The most critical battles were fought in quiet courtrooms. I had poured a fortune into Ava's legal defense. Trent Riker, facing a long sentence, had testified to everything: the abuse, the surveillance, the direct orders from Cade. The lawyer Cade had hired to file the custody petition was disbarred for filing a knowingly fraudulent claim. I sat in the back row of the family court, an anonymous man in a dark suit, as a judge finalized the order. Miss Collins, the judge said, her voice kind. Based on the overwhelming evidence and the full confession of Mr. Riker, the emergency petition is dismissed with prejudice. A permanent, lifetime restraining order is granted. You and your son are free. Full custody is affirmed. I watched Ava as she stood, her back straight. She did not cry. She just closed her eyes and took one long, shuddering breath. She had won. She had done it. I left before she saw me. Later that week, I invited her to my office, now located in a legitimate high-rise. Far from the restaurant, she arrived, not as a victim, but as an equal. The Marchetti Foundation, I said, getting straight to the point, has, until now, been a simple tax shelter. I want to make it real. I am endowing it with $50 million to fund public health initiatives, starting with shelters for women and children escaping domestic violence. She watched me, her intelligent eyes assessing me. Why? Because the systems that were supposed to protect you failed, I said. The police, the courts, they only worked when a man like me forced the issue. That is not justice. That is leverage. I want to build something that lasts. I slid a folder across the desk. I am offering you the position of program director. You will have full autonomy. You will build it from the ground up. You are a nurse. You are a paralegal. You are a survivor. You are the only person I trust to do it. She was silent for a long time, looking at the proposal. This is a high price. Gabriel, she said. It is not a price. I replied, it is a salary, and it is the right thing to do. She met my gaze. I accept, on one condition. Name it. The foundation remains separate from Marchetti Logistics. Its books are public, fully transparent. It cannot be another shell. It has to be real. I smiled. I would expect nothing less. Change was filtering through my own organization. Elena, now the official chief executive officer of the new Marchetti Logistics, was ruthless in her restructuring. She cut ties with any supplier, any manager, who had even a whiff of the old days. The governance she implemented was severe, built on the transparency I had promised the federal government. Luca's role changed, too. It was no longer a shadow, a head of security. He was now the head of a new department, one of his own creation, ethics and vetting. I found him in his new office, reviewing a stack of personnel files. Ethics, Luca, I asked, leaning against the doorframe. He looked up, his face impassive. Funny, right, the old dog. He tapped a file. This man applying for a driving contract, he has a sealed juvenile record, assault. I am flagging it. He was 17. Luca, I said, I had a record when I was 17. And look at us, he said, not smiling. The world is changing. Gabriel. Cade almost took us down with a hashtag. Our biggest liability now is not a bullet. It is a bad reputation. My job is to make sure we are clean. It is the new kind of armor. It was a strange and fascinating paradox, but he was right. The media, of course, was a circus. The story of the Mafia Don who saved the single mom was too good to pass up. Half the outlets painted me as a folk hero. The other half painted me as a monster who had only destroyed Cade to take his territory. The criticism was loud, but it did not stick. The facts, for once, were louder. The crypto ledger was public. Riker's confession was leaked. The testimony of the drivers was compelling. The narrative settled. I was a bad man. Perhaps, but I had done a good thing. The one person who did not care about the noise was Noah. His nightmares had lessened. Ava had, tentatively, accepted my offer of protection until the trials were over, and she and Noah remained in the penthouse. But Il Vento, now reopened, had become Noah's safe haven. I found him one afternoon in the main kitchen, standing on a milk crate. He was wearing a small, flour-dusted apron. My head chef, the gruff man who terrified new waiters, was showing him how to crush tomatoes. No, Piccolo, the chef was saying, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. Not with the spoon. With your hands. You have to feel it. The sauce needs to know you. Noah plunged his small hands into the bowl of tomatoes, squeezing, a huge grin spreading across his face as the juice squirted onto his apron. He was laughing. It was the first time I had heard him laugh. He was not in a fortress. He was in a kitchen. He was not with a Mafia Don. He was with a chef. He was, I realized, with his family, the one we were choosing to build day by day. That evening, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse alone. The city lights glittered below, a sea of diamonds. I pulled a cigar from my coat pocket, one of my old rituals, a symbol of power, of victory, of control. I rolled the expensive or dark wrapper between my fingers. I smelled the rich tobacco. I thought of the violence on the pier. I thought of Riker on the ground. I thought of Noah's terrified eyes asking me who I was. I did not light the cigar. The ritual felt hollow. The power it represented felt old, brittle. It was the power Cade had chased, the power to break things. Ava's courage was not in a cigar. It was in a nurse's uniform. It was in a wailing siren. Luca's new strength was in a personnel file. Mine was in a consent decree. It was in a community kitchen. I put the unlit cigar down on the table. I left it there, a relic of a past I was finally, truly, leaving behind. I turned and looked back through the glass at the city, my city, and for the first time, I felt the cold, clean air of a future I had actually earned. Ava did not move into the penthouse, and I did not ask her to. She found a new apartment, a bright, secure place in a building with a doorman, the lease paid for by the Marchetti Foundation's new Victim Relocation Fund, a program she herself had designed and signed off on. She was the program director, and she was my equal. The power dynamic that had begun with me kicking in her door had been slowly, painstakingly leveled. I did not woo her with flowers or grand gestures. The old Gabriel, the one who built an empire on shadows, would have tried to own her, to bind her with gifts and obligation. The new one understood that true loyalty could not be bought. Instead, I offered her transparency. She had a permanent voting seat on the board of the foundation. She saw every dollar that came in, and she directed every dollar that went out. I gave her security. Not just the physical presence of Luca's men, which she politely declined, but the security of knowing that the systems that had failed her were being dismantled and rebuilt. We found our rhythm in the quiet spaces. In the evenings, after Noah was asleep, I would come to her apartment. We would sit on her small balcony, the city humming below, and we would talk, not about the past, not about the trials, but about the foundation, about the design of a new shelter, about the logistics of moving a woman out of a dangerous home at 3 a.m. One night, she turned to me, her face serious in the blue twilight. "Gabriel," she said, her voice quiet but firm, I know what you are doing. I know you are changing. But I need you to understand something. I waited. Our relationship, she continued, whatever this is, it can only exist if you never, ever put Noah at risk again. He cannot be a part of your world, not the new one, not the old one. He cannot be a pawn or a liability or even a protected asset. He has to just be a kid. She was drawing a line, a boundary of steel. She was not just accepting my protection, she was setting the terms of my involvement. I met her gaze. That is not a condition, Ava, I said. That is my boundary, too. The moment this world touches him, I am out. That is the promise. He is not, and never will be, part of this. She searched my face, looking for the lie, the angle, the fine print. She found none. She simply nodded, and the tension that she had carried in her shoulders for months finally seemed to unspool. She reached out and, for the first time, took my hand. Our new normal was strange. It was a mosaic of old loyalties and new, fragile alliances. The most bizarre example was the pizza. It was a Friday night, almost a month after the indictment. Il Vento was closed, the last of the late diners gone. I was in the main dining room with Elena and Luca. We were not discussing business. We were arguing over whether pineapple belonged on a pizza, a debate my head chef refused to settle. The front door opened. We all tensed. Luca's hand moved, almost imperceptibly, toward his jacket. Agent Mara Ellison walked in. She was not in her tactical gear. She was wearing jeans and a leather jacket, her badge clipped to her belt. She looked tired. "The door was unlocked," she said, her voice flat. "We were just closing," Luca said, his voice a low warning. "Relax, Luca," I said, raising a hand. "She's not here for me." I looked at Mara. "Are you?" "No," she said. She looked at the fresh, wood-fired pizza on our table. "I am here because I have not eaten in 16 hours, and I am tired of my own cooking." I studied her. She was a woman of rigid rules. This visit was not in any manual. Elena, ever the pragmatist, stood and pulled out a chair. "Well, sit down, Agent, and we have an extra, but if you're going to eat our food, you have to weigh in. Pineapple, yes or no?" Mara looked at Elena, then at me, then at the pizza. A tiny, almost invisible smile touched the corner of her mouth. "It is an abomination," she said, sitting down, "and I will take a slice of the pepperoni." So we sat, the shark, the strategist, the enforcer, and the law. We ate pizza in a quiet restaurant, Mo. There were no fireworks. There was no grand reconciliation. It was just the new, complicated reality, a normal that would have been impossible 2 months ago. The end of Kate and X came not with a bang, but with a press release. The definitive investigative article was published in a major paper, a sprawling, deeply researched piece that laid out the entire conspiracy. It was built on the public crypto ledger, Riker's confession, and the sworn testimony of Ava and the truck drivers. Victor Cade was formally indicted on 27 counts, including wire fraud, racketeering, and witness tampering. Arthur Bell was indicted as a co-conspirator. The Cadenex board had been completely purged. The company was broken up, its assets sold for parts. And the Southside Container Pier, the prize that had started it all. It was placed in receivership and eventually sold to a national, legitimate logistics consortium. They were so clean they squeaked. As part of my cooperation deal, the Department of Justice had allowed Marchetti Logistics to purchase a minority stake, 9%. I did not get the kingdom. I got a small, legitimate, and very profitable seat at the table. It was not a victory. It was a start. The most profound victory, however, was one I did not witness. Ava told me about it. Noah had to give a presentation at his school. The topic was my hero. The children in his class talked about firefighters, about famous athletes, about movie stars. Then it was Noah's turn. He stood in front of his second-grade class, his small hands holding a piece of paper he did not read. He was, Ava said, terrified. But he did not falter. He did not say my name. He did not talk about the man who had kicked in his door or faced down a corporation. My hero, Noah said, his voice clear, is not the strongest. He's not the loudest. He took a breath. A hero is a person who does not shoot when he could. A hero is a person who, when he has all the power, chooses the law instead. That is what a real hero does. When Ava told me, I had to walk away. I went to the window of my office and looked down at the city, at the endless river of cars, for a very long time. The 9-year-old boy in the sticky kitchen in Little Italy finally, after all these years, felt safe. That night, I met Ava. We walked along the river, the Chicago skyline a brilliant, cold fire against the black sky. The city lights flickered, casting shadows that danced around us. It was cold, and she slipped her hand into mine for warmth. I did not have a ring in my pocket. I did not have a promise of a perfect, safe future. I did not have a simple answer. The world we lived in was complicated, and I was still a man with a past. But I had this, her hand in mine, the solid, real presence of a woman who had seen the worst of me and had chosen to stand by the best of me. We walked in silence, the river moving beside us. We were not at an end. We were at a beginning. The future was unwritten, and for the first time in my life, I was not afraid to let it write itself. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are all listening from, so please drop a comment below and let's connect. Please subscribe to my channel, Mafia Boss Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear this story.